Did you know this is National Police Week? Something most media outlets will likely choose to ignore. So each day this week on this show, we're going to highlight different issues and challenges facing police and law enforcement around the country, or celebrating achievements. Tonight, the widespread staffing shortages faced by police departments across the country. It is a serious issue that unfortunately doesn't seem to be getting much better. In part because of activists, media, and political leaders who've gutted morale as well as officers' abilities to do their jobs. A study published earlier this year by the Police Executive Research Forum, an independent police policy and research group, found staffing and hiring levels are down for departments nationwide, while retirements and resignations are up since before the pandemic. Ask almost any police officer, and they'll tell you they have been stretched to the limit, working overtime to fill the manpower gaps, all the while combating rising violent crime. Suddenly, many now seem to realize, wait, we need more cops, not less. But they don't have them. These are also jobs that are demonstrably more dangerous than ever. Talked about on the show, there's a national crisis in this country with a massive number of police officers being intentionally shot and killed in the line of duty, up 59% in 2021 compared to 2020. Not only do you have officers wondering if they'll survive their next traffic stop, they also have to worry whether they'll be condemned or worse. Officers are also leaving departments in search of well-deserved higher pay. Even small-town chiefs are being forced to beg for larger budgets, so their department's manpower don't drop to dangerous levels. There is some sort of good news. Certain departments are finding ways to lure officers from demoralized big city forces. Fort Lauderdale posted these billboards in Chicago, which seem to be working. They only have 6 vacant positions at this point. But even departments who are able to hire have seen their applicant pool narrow because fewer people want to be cops these days. A NewsNation investigation in March put a spotlight on the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department.
What would you say are the biggest challenges for officers out here right now?
Morale is definitely something that is a big issue here, just because with low manpower, not having enough officers out here, and you have officers that are going from call to call to call, and it wears on these officers.
It's not just police. We learned today that state prisons in Texas are suspending visitation due to staffing shortages there. Joining me now is Patrick Yoes, National President of the Fraternal Order of Police. Pat, thanks for coming back on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
It just seems so obvious that this is the result of these years of demonizing police officers. Again, what needs to change now to help us with these staffing problems?
Well, Dan, look, there are a lot of factors here, but one of them we need to recognize is that law enforcement officers are ordinary people that answer a calling to hire a public service, and they were called upon to do some extraordinary things at times. That doesn't mean that we're immune to all of these challenges that are affecting us, and law enforcement officers' morale is low for a number of factors. Words have consequences, and we have public officials that have attacked law enforcement and done it in such a way that has demonized our profession and caused instability. That instability is having less officers stepping up to take this job, more and more officers seeking more stable professions outside of law enforcement, and creating a crisis. We have a manpower shortage that is not going to go away anytime soon.
It's almost also a vicious cycle, because you have officers working extra shifts, detectives being pulled to do patrol, et cetera, because of the short staffing. And that in and of itself, I would assume, can contribute even further to the low morale.
Look, there's no doubt. Law enforcement officers, we're just ordinary people. We're ordinary people who have families, and we live in communities, and we do the same thing that everyone else does. We live the same lives. The problem we have is that in major cities across this country, because of the manpower shortage, law enforcement officers are being forced to work longer and longer hours in order to be able to fill the staffing shortages they have, and putting greater burden on them on just officer wellness. So there's so many factors here involved, and one that we need to wrap our arms around and recognize that the way we're going to get past this is if we stop pointing fingers at each other. I'm at a point now where I'm not so much concerned with how we got here, because I think we all can, history will record that. I'm more concerned on how do we move forward? How do we move past this time? And when we look holistically at all the things within a community that contribute to the quality of life within a community, and stop placing it at the feet of law enforcement. Let's find some real solutions. Let's improve our communities, and let's move past this time.
And I'd assume that one of the biggest issues in terms of solving it has to be funding.
It's funding. Funding is a factor, but quite honestly, you can fund all you want if you don't have officers that are willing to step up and take this job. So what we're seeing is a market for law enforcement officers to go to places and cities that are more stable. Now, look, there's no question the quality of life in every one of our communities is going to be directly related to the quality of law enforcement and the safety within our communities. And you know, you can't criticize those that are recognizing and trying to capitalize on the appreciating law enforcement officers and trying to attract them to their communities. I think everybody should be focused on that and recognizing that in every one of our communities, law enforcement is needed in order to be able to provide that stability, that sense of security that people have within their communities. If you allow law enforcement officers to continue to leave because you don't appreciate them, then what you're going to have is cities that are going to have higher and higher crime rates.
Pat Yoes, thank you for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.